Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back to the Networking RX. I am your host, Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we're going to talk about compliments. A big shout out to my brother-in-law, Jeff Grabmeyer, who works at The Ohio State University. He's a science writer there in university communication. But at any rate, he shared with me a study that he stumbled upon. And it's a study done by Erica Boothby, and she's with the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. But what the study was about, well, the title of the study is Why a Simple Act of Kindness is Not as Simple as It Seems, Underestimating the Positive Impact of Our Compliments on Others. Now, one of the things we talk about on this podcast is networking or building relationships. It's really a function of getting people to know us, getting people to like us, and getting people to trust us. And a key part of that is adding value to those around you, giving to others, generosity, altruism, however you want to term it. And there's lots of ways that you can add value to others. And certainly one of the ways you can add value to others is giving compliments. And if you stop and think about it, giving a compliment to somebody is probably one of the easiest things you can do to add value to others. I was reading Matt Ward's book. He's a professional speaker and word-of-mouth referral consultant, and he shared in his book More, Word-of-Mouth Referrals, Lifelong Customers, and Raving Fans. He has a chapter in there called Brighten Someone's Day. And in that chapter, he says this. He says, there's almost nothing better than receiving a heartfelt compliment. It makes the person you are complimenting feel great, and you can tell from the smile on their face that it brightens their day. Now, he goes on to say that it's not always easy to compliment people, and this was a part of the study is about, talking about why don't we compliment people more? It's such an easy thing, but sometimes it's hard to find things to compliment people for. And what he suggests doing, what Matt Ward suggests doing, is to look at your contact's social media feed. Whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter, those are kind of the big four that people use, and you look at their social media feeds to discover what they're sharing about, what they're interested in. And from there, it's really kind of a treasure trove of information about the people you're connected with, and you can use any of it to give somebody a heartfelt compliment. So that's a great suggestion. From there, obviously you can leave a message on a like or a share or a comment on someone's social media, but you can also send them a handwritten note off of that. For example, you might see that somebody's child graduated or student of the week or state champion or whatever it is, or you can pick up the phone and call or send a text. Whatever the case, as Ward indicates, it really kind of brightens their day to do that. So that tends to make it easier, but yet still, and social media has been around for a while, it's been around for 10 plus years, still researchers find that people just don't give that many compliments. And so what Erica Boothby and her team did at the Wharton School is they wanted to really kind of uncover as to why people weren't giving compliments. And so she brought in test subjects. He brought in people who were receivers of compliments and people who were givers of compliments, and obviously recruiting on the campus of University of Pennsylvania, not just in the business school, but all across the campus. And she did a series of different studies, and I won't get into them all, but one of the studies she did was she selected a group of 100 people, and 200 people. She put 100 randomly selected as the givers of compliments and the other randomly selected as the receivers of compliments, and then set them about their day. And it's not real clear from the study, but I sensed that the givers didn't know who the receivers were and vice versa. They were just instructed to give a compliment to somebody. And they were told, not just somebody, but they were kind of told who the person would be, and it was arranged that the receiver would be in that point at a particular time. So nobody knew what was being said or what the compliment would be. And they tried to standardize it in one aspect of the study, and by standardizing it, they essentially said, okay, compliment the person on their shirt, and if they don't have a shirt, if they were wearing a jacket, then compliment them on their jacket. Whatever top covering they had, just a nice little heartfelt compliment going up to them. And then the giver of the compliment was supposed to hand a letter to the receiver saying, with the survey in it, just a quick little survey, how did you feel receiving that compliment? And they were supposed to complete that survey at that point in time. Now, the receiver of the compliment didn't know when the compliment was coming. It was just totally out of the blue. And so when they received the compliment, it was genuine. They didn't know until after the compliment was had that, okay, this is part of the study. What am I supposed to do now? And they didn't really know what they were supposed to do until they were handed the letter. Now, the people who were giving the compliments, what they did was they were to rate beforehand, before they went out. Compliment givers answered several questions asking how they thought the other person would feel as a result of their compliment. In other words, the person receiving your compliment, what do they feel? And it was a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being not at all, and 7 being very, very much. So it's kind of on that scale. So anyhow, the compliment givers went out and they connected with their targets, with the receivers, and they gave the compliment, handed them the letter, and the letter had a similar question: how did that make you feel? And it was pretty significant, but the people who received the compliment felt much more joy, much more satisfaction. They were closer to liking it very, very much than to not at all. Whereas the people who were out there giving the compliments, they misforecast just how good that compliment would make the receiver feel. And so that was one aspect of the reason as to why people don't give compliments, is that they feel that it really doesn't have the value that it truly does. They just, in their mind, like, yeah, it's not a big deal. That's a nice shirt. I like it. Or shoes, or whatever it is. Smile, great speech. They just don't feel like it really has the impact that it does. But these receivers essentially indicated that it truly does have an impact. Now, in one particular study, as I indicated, they were complimenting about the person's shirt or top or jacket that they were wearing, and they were concerned that that might create some pessimism towards the person receiving the referral. I mean, after all, if I'm out walking, I'm part of the study, and I don't know when this compliment's coming, and I'm wearing a plain white T-shirt, and somebody comes up and says, hey, I really like your shirt, it's like, okay, yeah, why? So they were a little concerned about that, and so in a second iteration of the study, they asked people, the givers, to make a genuine compliment about whatever they liked about the person. Here's the person, you make the comment. Is it their backpack? Is it their smile? Whatever it is. Essentially, the results were the same, is that the givers of the compliments misforecast how much the receivers of the compliments would appreciate the compliments. And again, the numbers are statistics. This was actually published. This is peer reviewed and published. It was in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, and it came out July 15th, 2020. So it's relatively recent study that was done at the Wharton School, and it's very interesting. So point number one is that givers of compliments, and this might be a reason why people don't give compliments, is they just feel like the impact of their compliment doesn't have as much oomph as they might think. And so if we think about this and realize that people really do appreciate our compliments more so than we think, then I think we need to reflect back to some of the things that Matt Ward said in his book and get on social media and find things to compliment one another about. And if you're not connected to somebody on social media, maybe it's a total stranger, kind of put yourself out there and just, I like that shirt. Where did you get it? I like those earrings, those shoes, that smile. You gave a great presentation. I really wanted to take the time to let you know that I really appreciated what you had to say. And I read your book. That was really wonderful, or whatever it might be. I love the report you gave at the office. Take the time to do those things. Now, they did another aspect of the study. They're really trying to dig into, okay, why do people not give compliments? And one of the other theories they had, or hypothesis they had, was that people overestimate the cost of a compliment. Now, this third study tested whether people additionally overestimated the negative impact they would have on the stranger they complimented. And I'll quote from the study here: "We hypothesized that because people tend to feel awkward and uncomfortable about interacting with new people, they would assume the converse to also be true, that by approaching a stranger, they would make that person feel awkward and uncomfortable." So, in this study, people don't know who they're giving compliments to, and they're all part of the study, but they don't know who it is, and so they're approaching a stranger. And they're just they're concerned about their own feelings of awkwardness, and they're concerned about the other person's feelings of awkwardness, being uncomfortable, putting people, interrupting someone to give them a compliment. And is that more of an intrusion, or do they truly appreciate the compliment? Is essentially what the study was. And I can see that even being true amongst people that you might know. Okay, this person did something really neat. I'm going to call them up. Now, is that an intrusion? Are they really going to appreciate that, or am I just intruding on their day? And it's like, yeah, this is kind of weird. Why are you complimenting me? It's kind of out of place. And that might be the case because we don't do it that often, that people might be a little suspect. What do they want to borrow money, or what's all behind this? But at any rate, following a similar means of conducting the experiment, what the researchers found that the compliment givers not only underestimated the value of their compliments to recipients, but the compliment givers also overestimated the negative impact their compliments had on recipients. Receivers felt way less annoyed, bothered, or uncomfortable by having someone up and giving a compliment, way more than the givers anticipated. So what the study is driving at, and there's more to the study, and it goes on and on and on, and you might be able to find this study online somewhere, and if you want to read it yourself, there's certainly a lot of information in here. But the gist of the article, the gist of the study is that part of the reason we don't give compliments is, one, we feel like people don't appreciate them as much as we might think they do. And we'd be wrong. They do appreciate them. And then the second thing is that when we take the time to compliment people, it might be awkward to us, but it's less awkward, less bothersome, less uncomfortable to them. And again, we should take the time to compliment other people. And again, I'm referring back to Matt Ward's quote in his book, which is, again, there's almost nothing better than receiving a heartfelt compliment. And he goes on to say, look on social media. But there's really lots that we can compliment one another for. It's just a question of taking the time and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I've seen people who have done various things to ensure that they give compliments, including putting 5 pennies in their left pocket and then making sure that those 5 pennies are in the right pocket at the end of the day. But you can only move those pennies from left to right when you give somebody a compliment, which is certainly an interesting way of making yourself somewhat intentional about giving compliments. At any rate, before we sign off, remember, we're looking to add quality people to our stable of franchisees. This is a unique franchise opportunity in that it's geared for aspiring entrepreneurs or professionals to add on to what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For just a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, our franchisees operate the AmSpirit Business Connections program. The rest of their week, they're accountants, they're attorneys, financial advisors, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. If you are interested, contact me. There's an email in the show notes, or you can use the one we provide at the end of the podcast.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.